Everyone, it is February 27th, 2025, and welcome to the executive session of the Clarksville City Council. As usual, the Planning Committee 2425. Mr. Tyndall, please, sir.
All right. Good evening, City Council and Mayor. While we boot up.
You're hearing voices?
So it was deferred prior to the first reading. I am here to answer any additional questions. The applicant with the public hearing next week and first reading of it. Again, this is an R1 request to appeal portion of Manning Heights, pending what the state would do. And again, this approval is hinged on that. It is subject to the state approving that. And this is the first of several steps. Other steps include and we'll continue to work with the utilities and get all those other plans knocked out. Do we run out of batteries?
I think we need some batteries up here in this
Maybe.
remote.
As mentioned, yeah, you can just go through all the pictures and go to the last slide for this one. You can stop on this. Road widening and improvements and driveway locations have been met with this submittal. A grading and water quality permit will be required. Fire and rescue, no concerns listed. They are widening Edge Hill Road and Manning Heights and providing for sufficient turnaround on the property. And the school system listed their comments about their capacities at Norman Smith, Montgomery Central, Middle, and High School. Applicant is proposing 72 units on this property, mostly. And the PUD report is attached. I know you've all read this. We discussed this heavily last month. If there are any additional questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And again, your public hearing will be next week.
Thank you, Mr. Tyndall. Councilman Zacharias, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tyndall, you and I had spoken, constituent noticed in the difference between the slope description in the packet that we got last year.
What you're mentioning, I think in the 2023 report, it mentioned moderate to steep. Now it just mentions moderate in terms. Obviously, the slope hasn't changed between the two. We weren't concerned in 2023. We're not percent of slope out there will be under a 3-to-1 slope, even when complete, which is considered a stable slope.
All right. So possible development, but the definitions for low to slight or.
Hence the new update there.
All right. Thank you very much.
Councilman Hollman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tyndall, seems like we're almost in a race. In your opinion, is growth good?
And they're making hard decisions over cutting teachers, closing fire departments, having leaky water pipes. Growth when managed, growth when controlled, growth when it brings positive things to your community. Just in a throes right now where we're growing very fast, faster than normal, faster than in our history. So I think it's we're just a popular place, and that is the market's reaction to Middle Tennessee.
Okay. So do you see rezones here and there? It actually changes the character of Clarksville?
In some places they do, for dated homes that are in need of repair or in need of a new home on the property, and there are opportunities to get more dense. Just because someone's yard is maybe smaller or the home's a little taller or narrower shouldn't maybe change how we think.
There's greater traffic. Greater traffic means more accidents. It's there are a lot of other elements. I would definitely include myself amongst them, but that's all I've got. Thank you.
Councilman McLaughlin, you're recognized.
The project can't happen unless TDOT sells them the right of way, submits an application for zone change, even though they don't own the property yet, to see if it meets the requirements.
And then potentially the zoning gets turned down after the fact, and now they're left holding a right of way with TDOT. I don't think it's going to be a quick process, but several months to a year. And then once they have that in appraisal and sell it to them, at that point they can come back to the Planning Commission. It's after that. So it's step one in a 2 or 3 step process here.
Okay, thank you.
Ward 2, Councilwoman. So if TDOT doesn't sell it, does it remain a PUD or does it?
Here's the Planning Commission basically calls the property owner or applicant to the floor and says, we'll ask them to come and give us an update. If they're like, yeah, it's dead, we didn't get the property, the Planning Commission would enter an ordinance.
In a FEMA flood zone.
This is not in a flood zone. No, this is much higher.
Okay.
If you go out there from Riverside.
The woods, and I saw it, and I didn't know. I appreciate it.
Any other comment or question?
and positive growth. So where does it start being controlled? I know we make some decisions here, but things seem to come through your office, and this is why we're discussing this today.
The market. And the market's going to do what the market does, and based on the prices of property and the values of when you build a home or an apartment or even a commercial or industrial building. Or legislative action and not another action. Things that have already been zoned and already approved, there's not adequate based on studies. If water's not there yet, there are ways to slow down things. We've done it a few till approved, but we're slowing down other things and saying you can start after 2026 or a mechanism from time to time at subdivision, some site plans. But it's hard to actually turn something down. It's good for a community. Most growth brings additional tax base, property tax, sales tax, et cetera.
As we see it in other states, like just for an example, Nashville, we see that people are moving away from their property or how much it costs to rent or, how much it costs to buy. And so I do believe.
Councilman Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tyndall, I know one of the things at River District, and it could be a catalyst for improvement and redevelopment along Riverside Drive. And on top of that, we've seen businesses close. The grocery store that was originally located right near this department, that's more of a national level as far as their business is concerned. But do you believe that this could be?
I don't believe it can hurt. Let's put it that way. Is 72 units going to put the thumb on this? There's been several multifamily developments over the past. Now, granted, they're not as dense, but there are additional more you could benefit from. But for Riverside, just having more people right there would similar type of store.
And also, we often hear about the rising price of rental units and continuing to see increase.
Two things on that. One, again, it's market. Property taxes increased by the city. The raising of the property taxes has had to force some of that to be pushed on to the end user, increase in utilities, insurance, et cetera. Everything's gotten more expensive in the last 2 and 3. You did back in November, and that's available on our website, and happy to send it to everyone here if you don't have it. Very low, like $600 a month rent to over $2,000 a month rent. We need over 1,000 units as well. In a community like ours, when something like this opens up, someone may move from another unit in the community called filtering. Now, unfortunately, in a very growing community like we are, people are coming from outside quickly and also, and I got a PowerPoint slide I can definitely share with you all to show that units, both houses and rental units of all.
Supply and demand, just like with anything else, can lead to higher rental prices on these units, because if you have high demand and low.
Just to bring up one thing that some people keep mentioning, kind of like a food desert in that area, is 2.6 miles. That's about 6 minutes to get there. You've got a Dollar General Market downtown here. I don't see this as a food desert. I do see that, putting some more rooftops in there might improve there. It seems to be brought up a few times by some other organizations or whatever. But
Thank you. This is more of a statement. In 2008 and 2009, I sat on the Riverside Drive area, which helped spur Liberty Park, the Marine, and housing on the frontage of Riverside Drive. This is not something that hasn't been planned, but this was in part of it as well. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Councilman Chandler, you're recognized.
Right now,
In the housing needs assessment, again, that was dated November, so it's October data, but it does rate you need, and I don't know it off the top of my head, so I'm not going to guess. But you need a certain rate so that you actually have mobility within the unit as soon as they become open. We're a military town. People are still moving here.
today I got out driving around my ward, look at some things that's on the agenda. And there was one apartment complex not completely full. And then right straight across from Rural King, there's a huge, and the statement that we have military people coming in. So again, I was on the council, but did I have the Manning Heights area? It's overwhelming. I had to make its own little folder.
425, Mr. Tyndall.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Planning Commission Case Z6, 2025, application of Rita Homebuilders. This is .43 acres, just under a half acre, if you will. Currently zoned R4 multifamily and requesting to go to R2A single-family yeah, you can kind of see the right-of-way. Someone is parking vehicles in there right now, but that is part of a right-of-way. The applicant's statement is R4 is unsuitable for the lot size, R2A is better for future development. Here's the property, it's from the telephone pole to about the sign, so not much you can do. When it goes to, well, currently they can't do anything under R4, but under R2A, they could do one single-family home off of this frontage, and if they divide, so you have duplexes to the left and an apartment complex to the right of this and a self-storage facility behind it. Let's see. City Street Department said historic estimates would be 1 or 2 units. In this case, could not be any more. Staff recommends approval. The request is consistent with the overall goals of the comprehensive plan. The proposed R2 affords the applicant the opportunity to construct a single-family home at each. Recommends approval. I think I heard something over here about a drainage ditch. We did confirm with the street department that this has never been part of the drainage system out there. It is a remnant lot. So.
Councilman Haywood, you're recognized.
Could you go back to that picture? All right, I'm trying to imagine a house going
It's about
there.
40 feet wide. You have a long,
Yeah.
skinny house.
Yeah. Yeah, real skinny. All right, thank you.
Any more comment or question? We're now ready for
5 application of Infinity Investments LLC. This is .45 acres, currently zoned R1 single-family residential, going to R6 single-family residential district. It's a parcel located on Hillsborough Road and Binks Drive. Peters Mill Road is a couple blocks to the right there. And you can see the zoning of the area. And here's the property from Hillsborough. Department comments and concerns. The street department said sidewalks would be required per the zoning ordinance and driveway spacing must comply with the city access ordinance. No other department comments or concerns. Historic estimates would be 6 lots out of this. This is in the Lafayette Peters Mill Road area, consistent with the overall goals of the comprehensive plan. The proposal is internal to an established R1 subdivision. Increases in residential are most appropriate along the outer edges of existing neighborhoods or as transitions and buffers to more intense uses. Residential zone changes internal to a subdivision should be more gradual by nature. The proposed zone change 25 feet. This would be inconsistent with the overall pattern internal to this subdivision. No adverse environmental issues were identified, and the Planning Commission also recommended disapproval.
Councilman McLaughlin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few comments. Measured a street for speeding as a cut through to get to Peters Mill Road, and yet it qualified for that because adding 6 more families worth of traffic on a historic R1 lot, it would severely voted down a zoning case on Lafayette Road that was for R2A. This is higher density on the same size lot. Chance to watch the Planning Commission meeting from Tuesday. 3 neighbors who have lived in that area for average, we support that and vote no on this. Thank you.
Councilman Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in agreement with the person that spoke before me, especially in regards to the 3 residents that spoke, both here and at the Regional Planning Commission meeting by Mr. Tyndall, in that this in no way, changing this doesn't fit the neighborhood in any way, and you don't see it anywhere else around there. This is so very, I mean, there's a stark line here as far as all of it being that same zoning. So I'm also, my vote will not change between now and the Regional Planning Commission. I'll be voting against this.
Any more comment or question regarding item C? Councilman Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor. I said thank you, Mr. Tyndall, too. Trying to give you a little more authority. But anyway, I was gonna say, I hear what my fellow members say, but R6 would not be a problem in this area for the simple fact that we have voted for other areas that had a R1, R2, R3, and we put R6 in it. I don't think that's a reason not to vote R6 in, just because it's not on the map We have voted that in many neighborhoods where R6 didn't even exist. It was the first thing brought forth to change the zoning in that area. So I just wanted to make that clear. R6 should not be a problem or a reason not to vote for this. Because R6, does bring in high density. It depends on how many apartments or so you bring in or you build. But can you tell me what ward this is in?
Sure, I believe this is Ward 3 or 4, hold up.
Ward
Thank you.
4.
And what was B in, the one you just gave us on ordinance 57?
The one before this up at the airport is in Ward
Was it one?
number 1, thank you.
Thank you. That does it. Thank you, Mayor.
Any more comment or question? We're now ready for item D, ordinance 59, 2024-25. Mr. Tindall.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our Planning Commission case Z11, 2025. This is the application of Mike Greenfield. This is 8.71 acres, currently split zoned with a little bit of C5 and mostly R4 multiple family residential district, requesting all to go to M1 light industrial district. The property is on the south of Ashland City Road and Chesterfield Drive intersection. It's bisected by an unimproved right-of-way, and the frontage and half the near street level, the rear of the tract is overgrown and drops off into a flood zone. I'm sure that was English. Applicant statement. The owner is having to move contractors' buildings due to a fire loss. In the current zoning manual, construction contractor is designated as an M1 zone per the table. Greenfield Trucking was leasing a property over in the Vulcan Quarry area, and the building burnt down. They were actually a tenant in there, and whoever owned the building is not building it back, so they're looking for another opportunity. Mr. Greenfield has owned this for many years, and when you see it, you'll know what we're talking about if you've been down the bypass. And I can't tell you whether the sheds are staying or not, but in M1 they could do outdoor sales, and they can do the trucking operation, which would consist of a small maintenance building and then the surface parking out there. Department comments. Street Department, the property is largely in a FEMA designated flood AE zone, which may limit property use. The Wall Branch is identified as an impaired stream. Most small streams in this community would be identified as impaired, which means it's polluted with sediment or other pollutants from the area. If you see the floodplain for this, it's never been further defined. The applicant did send us, after we sent this to you, a map that shows that the floodplain is well off the back of this property. If you go out there, it's been filled very high. The floodplain is at the bottom of the property, and that floodplain acts as a very good buffer between the back of this neighborhood, which is actually set higher than this property, and Ashland City Road. No other department comments or concerns. The future land use map identifies this property as both commercial industrial hybrid to the north and suburban neighborhood to the south. It was split by the road there. We may pursue abandonment of that in the future. That road doesn't exist out there. This request is consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. The future land use opinion map inadvertently divides the applicant's property along the undeveloped right-of-way that the applicant plans to apply for abandonment. The future land use identified for this property is commercial industrial hybrid, and M1 is the appropriate zoning for this parcel. While the zoning request continues to the south border of the parcel, there's a natural buffer between the developed area and the residential property to the south, identified as the Wall Branch and associated FEMA flood zone. Planning Commission staff recommends approval, and the Planning Commission also recommended approval.
Thank you, Mr. Tindall. Any comment or question? Councilman McLaughlin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tindall, where's the closest M1 zoning to this?
So, that's a good question. I don't want to lie to you. So there may be some further up Ashland City as you go up the hill there, as you've seen some of those uses up there. There's a lot of non-conforming old C5 parcels up there, some auto body and things like that. So I don't have the answer for you yet, but I can get you that answer.
Okay, I was just curious. I can look it up. Thank you.
Councilman Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tindall, there's obviously a lot of things that can go in different zones. zoning classifications. Do you think maybe this week we would be able to get the spreadsheet that we discussed that would make it easy for everybody to kind of just look very quickly and see what all can go in M1?
Yes, I'm sorry, we had that last week before the snowstorm, and it kind of got put on the shelf with the shuffling for other things later that week. We'll get that to you this week.
All right, thank you, sir, I appreciate it.
Any more comment or question regarding ordinance 59? We're now ready for item E, ordinance 60, 2024-25. Mr. Tyndall.
Thank you. This is application Z12, 2025 from the Planning Commission. Current zoning is R1, and they're requesting, or R1A, and they're requesting to go to R2A. This is 0.39 acres, and the application is from Hunter Winn. The property is on West Summerfield Drive and south of Barbie Lane and north of Silver Star Drive. It's a residential building lot with a detached structure on site, and the applicant says, I'm looking to go from 1 lot to 2. And there's the site with the trees right there. It's sort of mid-block between the 2 other parcels. There is an outbuilding that appeared to be part of the original building to the right, the home to the right, and somehow this parcel got divided off from that original parcel. It is part of the original subdivision out there, I should say that. It's likely that the owner at one point owned both lots and now has sold one of their 2 lots off. Department comments, we did not receive any comments or concerns from the departments. Historical estimates would be 2 units. Staff does recommend disapproval. The request is not consistent with the overall goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. The proposal is internal to an established R1A single-family subdivision. Increase in residential are most appropriate along the outer edges of the existing neighborhoods or as transitions and buffers to more intense uses. The proposed zone change from R1A to R2A reduces the minimum lot size and the lot width in half and would not be in character with the overall pattern of the surrounding properties. The residential zone changes internal to a subdivision should be more gradual in nature. No adverse environmental issues were identified as part of this request. The Planning Commission also recommended disapproval.
Councilman Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tyndall, one of the things in looking at this, I know it says it's more gradual, and I agree with that on another that we voted on. But in regard to this one, we're talking about R1A to R2A. It's, it's not 1 step, it's 2, but it's still small steps. There's R2A right nearby. There's a lot of R2 in the area as well. And in regard to it dividing the lot in half and being out of character with the neighborhood, when you look directly across the street, while yes, it's not quite as deep as the ones that are located across Summerfield Drive, if you put a line right down it, they would be essentially close to the same width of what those are. So, I mean, that myself and another commissioner voted against the disapproval in the meeting, and for me, it had to do with that right there, is that it really still does fit the neighborhood in there.
This one's a more of a fine judgment call, and I think when staff looked at it, we were feeling a little more about precedent setting, about finding these backyards of folks and maybe trying to divide them. So I don't think staff was necessarily unanimous on this discussion. We spent some time talking about this because we do think we'll see more of this in the future.
Well, and this one almost looks not as much like somebody developing in their backyard, because how it would kind of be beside the house on there. This almost looked like this ended up being basically 2 lots instead of 1, because it's a very large lot. That lot is a very large lot when you add in the house that's with it in comparison to the rest of the neighborhood. So I don't know that I really look at it as precedent setting for somebody, building in their backyard when that's the biggest lot on the whole map of what I'm seeing here.
It was 2 platted lots, and the owner bought 2 lots when they built there. Now they have 1 lot left over. So it's always appropriate for 1 lot. They could build 1 house right now today. They're just asking for the zoning to build 2.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was just speaking in reference to talking about setting a precedence for building in the backyard type of thing. Sorry.
Councilman Haywood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. You said he's trying to build 2, though. Is that what you said he was trying to
The
do?
zoning would allow for 2 compliant lots, no more, or just 1.
Okay. Mayor, do you know if we are allowed to see if this guy can come in?
I anticipate he'll be here
Yeah,
next
and
week.
You will?
at the
Okay.
public hearing, I suspect he'll be here.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hopefully they're listening and we'll take the clue. Any other comment or question? All right, we're ready for item F, ordinance 61, 2024-25.
Planning Commission case Z14, 2025, application of RL Home LLC. This is 0.35 acres, currently zoned RM1, single-family mobile home district, requesting to go to R4 multiple family residential district. It's south of Britton Springs Road and east of Center Road, City Council Ward number 3. The applicant's statement is to match the surrounding R4 and provide highest and best use to build a triplex. This area is just on the city-county line. You can kind of see that dark red and white line right there on Center Road. So the property's in the city, the road is in the county. We'll have to coordinate that when they come in to construct. And there it is, about halfway down Britton Springs Road. And this area is a interesting mix of RM1, R1, and R4. Part of the reason we are doing the Britton Springs Road plan is to get a little better handle on just what should some of these areas, especially these aging mobile home areas, as they've become, as they're aging out and being pulled off the property, what should be there back instead. Signed the contract this week, so we hope to be out there in the community in the next 2 months to start that kickoff and start getting those opinions. Here's the property in question and the mobile home that's on the property. Department comments. The street department noted that that is a county road and not a city road out there. So the city will review the drainage and the county will review the road connection. No other comments or concerns on this. Estimates could be as high as 4 units. Applicant stated a triplex like they've been building in the area on some other parcels that they've rezoned both in the city and in the county. In fact, the county zoned the parcel across the street just this past about 6 months ago. Staff does recommend approval. The request is consistent with the overall goals of the comprehensive plan. The parcel shown as part of the suburban neighborhood future land use. And while predominant use is moderate density single-family residential, this request is adjacent to new multifamily developments, replaces aging housing stock, and increases housing options in the planning area without negatively affecting the character of the area. It is encouraged to maintain a desirable mix of housing stock in the planning area, and no adverse environmental issues were identified with this request. The Planning Commission also recommended approval.
Thank you. Councilman McLaughlin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Mr. Tyndall, when do you expect the outcome of the study of this tornado-affected area of Ward 3 would be ready for publication?
Yes, it's, the scope of work is 6 to 8 months from the time we kick it off. So even when we go out to the community, we'll have already started a few weeks of work ahead of time. So March, so November, December.
Okay. Because I know that we've discussed zoning cases in that area over the last probably 8 or so months, and at least I, for one, have encouraged that we wait until we know what the plan looks like for that area. All right, thank you.
It's one of the reasons we're doing that plan.
Any more comment or question? Councilman Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Just something simple. What ward was D, N, and E? Ordinance 59 and ordinance 60?
Yes, the last few. The previous one was in Ward number 1,
Yeah, okay.
and the
E?
one on
Okay.
Ashland City Road is in Ward 7.
Ward 7, and that's D?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Tyndall,
I believe that concludes, our reports.
conclude your report. All right. We're now ready for the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the consent agenda.
All items in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and may be approved by one motion. However, a member of the council may request that an item be removed for separate consideration under the appropriate committee report. Ordinance 49, 2024-25, second reading. An ordinance accepting the donation of certain real property from the River Chase Marine Terminal LLC property to the city of Clarksville for the purpose of a sewer pump station. Ordinance 50, 2024-25, second reading. an ordinance amending the official code of the City of Clarksville, Title 13, Utilities and Service, Chapter 3, Gas, Water, and Sewer Service, to add a new Section 13-327 pertaining to advertising, logos, emblems, etc. on city water towers. Resolution 42, 2024-25, a resolution approving appointments to the ACT Authority, Community Health Foundation, and Human Relations Commission. Resolution 43, 2024-25, a resolution approving a retail liquor store certificate of compliance for 931 Wine and Spirits and repealing the certificate of compliance for Blast Spirits, and the adoption of minutes from February 6th and February 18th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman McLaughlin, you're recognized.
Thank you. Correction to the minutes, under public comments, Carla Gargas was absent for illness.
Thank you. Any more comment or question regarding consent agenda? Councilman Streetman, you're recognized.
Yes, Mayor, and Madam Clerk, it is my apologies that I didn't notice and ask this sooner. We had delayed one last month on the consent agenda and postponed the second reading to this month. And again, I am so sorry that I didn't catch this sooner and ask about it.
We'll go back and find it. And
I'm so sorry. I just didn't know if it had been withdrawn or anything like that.
we'll go back and find it and stick it on there.
I apologize.
No.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other comment or question regarding the consent agenda? All right. We're now ready for the Finance Committee report. Chairman Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 55, 2024-25, an ordinance accepting the donation of certain real property from Main Street Investments, Tennessee Group property to the city of Clarksville for the purpose of a sewer pump station. The Finance Committee voted in favor of approval of this. This is our same run-of-the-mill thing that we've done many a times before in regard to the sewer pump stations.
Comment or question regarding this ordinance? Chairman Streetman.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
I was waiting on that. Gas and Water Committee, Chairman McLaughlin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to go ahead and give our February report as prepared by the Gas and Water leadership. Clarksville Gas and Water was excited to launch its new customer magazine, The Service Line. Everybody should have probably received that in the mail in the last couple weeks. The inaugural issue debuted in February. The publication will follow a quarterly mailing schedule with access available through the website as well. The next edition will release the end of May and will include the annual drinking water quality report, which has historically been mailed as an insert in the monthly billing statement. The development of this project was partially funded through a grant with the state of Tennessee. Invoice Cloud, a year in review. Online payments for last year, 67% of customers chose to make online payments, which was a 4% increase over 2023. 26% of customers using paper invoices, which is an increase of 9% from 2023. And auto pay enrollment was up 20% from the year prior. The City Employees Service Recognition Luncheon that was held on April 4th, the Gas and Water's own Tommy McClellan was recognized for 45 years of service. He began his employment with the department on November 19th, 1979 as a meter reader. His dedication through his many years with the city exemplifies what it is to live in service of your community. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Now ready for Neighborhood and Community Services Committee. Chairman Shekinab, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a full report next week.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation Committee, Chairman Zacharias, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have a full report next week, but I do want to take this opportunity to remind everybody that before the next meeting, we have the Family Formal Mad Hatter Edition at the Wilma Rudolph Event Center from 5 to 8. And also, it would be inappropriate for me to not recognize that our Parks and Rec department went to the Southeast Festivals and Events Association Conference and brought home some hardware. They were awarded a gold medal for their Sweeter Days Farm for the Farm to Table Dinner, and bronze medals for Best Children's Event and Best Event Under 75K for Christmas on the Cumberland and Kinder Kitchen. So congratulations to Parks and Rec.
Congratulations. Mad Hatter, as in a Mad Hat, or is that Alice in Wonderland? What do we
That is an Alice in Wonderland.
know anything about that?
I do.
The member from Ward 3? All right, thank you. Mad hats, mad cats. All right. Public Safety Committee, Chairman Lovato, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have a full report next week.
Thank you. Transportation, Streets, and Garage Committee, Chairman Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a report on March the 6th, but I would like to thank the street department at this time for keeping the city movable and safe during the snowstorm. They worked overnight. They worked long hours for a long time. I just want to thank them for all the good work that they do in keeping us healthy, moving through the storm.
Thank you. That deserves a round of applause. Mr. Smith, if you'll take that back to the guys and gals who earned it. All right. All right. That's all I got. That's all I got. All right. We're now ready for public comments. We allow 3 people 5 minutes each. Any member of the public wish to address the council? Okay, we're now ready for mayor and council member comments. Any member of council have a comment? Councilman McLaughlin, you're recognized.
Thank you. Really quick to tag on to what the chairman of the Transportation, Street, and Garage Committee stated. In addition to the snow event, the city garage, gas and water, the street department, the police department, the fire department, I know I'm forgetting people, worked the whole holiday weekend, including the mayor, trying to help get people the resources that they needed for flooding. As people were putting requests in, we'd pass it on and we'd get reports. And I feel like there was, it was a really good example of cohesion amongst the departments. And a lot of people may not realize that I consider the city garage the unsung heroes of our city staff, because if they're not there making sure that the salt trucks work and that the equipment's working, then our other departments can't do their jobs to help the citizens. And I also want to say, I never thought there would be water rescues from houses in Ward 2. Some pretty tragic ones, people that were having health emergencies that couldn't get out of their houses. So everybody came together, and I know that I'm grateful, and I know that the people who receive those services are also grateful. And I just pray to God we don't have any more rain events until we can figure out how to get this fixed. So thank you.
Thank you. I've said it before and I'll say it again. We've got the best people that work for the city. Councilman Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate some people that may be watching the press release that was sent out yesterday about we're looking for members for the beer board. We need to find another member for that board, and because we've had times where we can't even have a beer board meeting because we don't have a quorum, and we have constituents and businesses out there that, depend on that. So if anybody's interested and you live inside the city limits and you're not a city employee, please apply. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll also remind you, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. at the Wilma Rudolph Event Center, we will be swearing in a new police chief. He happens to be in the audience tonight. So Charles Tyson Burdine, would you please stand so we can... In addition, we'll be saying goodbye for now, and so long, and thank you to Chief David Earl Crockrell, that is. All right. Okay, that deserves a round of applause. Thank you. We will have a section of seats set aside for the council. If you happen to be there, we would love to have you there so we can make sure that we honor the 2 people who lead a very important department of our city. Any more comments or questions before we go to Councilman Hollman, who has a presentation? Okay, Councilman Smith, because we're saving him for last. He's got a presentation.
Oh, okay. And I also want to thank our mayor. I forgot to do that. I noticed that when I read a lot in the paper and Main Street newspaper, how they keep up with what's going on around this city. We want to thank the news reporter, Miss Sherry, I think that's her name. I hope I got that right, for keeping us abreast on what's going on in this city. I see that the mayor's got his eye on his people, and that's of this city that he represents. He's always trying to, and I'm not doing this for nothing because, hey, I'm going to say I'm real. I'm going to say what I don't believe in and what I will. But I am going to say that we need to give him a round of applause for how he's been keeping an eye on this city. Mayor, I just want to say thank you. Keep up the good work. And I know I'm just a pebble in the sand, but I do appreciate what you do.
Thank you for the kind words. Any other comments before we go to Councilman Hollman for his presentation? All right, Councilman Hollman, you're recognized for comments.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So like, last meeting I got kind of silenced, and so I went ahead and made a presentation. It's not going to be really that entertaining. I'm just going to read it. And so I'm just going to say my piece, and hopefully I don't get interrupted. If I do, then, so be it. But we're going to talk about the communist agenda, U.S. aid, George Soros, and other woke DEI-related exposure. All right, so what we will cover. Like I said last week, if you YouTube Yuri Bezmenov, psychological warfare, there's a YouTube video. It's probably about an hour-long lecture. I think he gave it in 1983. It's a pretty good lecture. Talks about the subversion of Western society, and so he actually did this stuff. Like, this was his job to come over here from Russia to subvert our society. We're going to talk about George Soros and the agenda to get rid of you. We're going to touch up a little bit about that, but there's a topic break. It's just a ADD. We're going to talk about a different topic, just to kind of break the ice a little bit. U.S. aid corruption, which has just been recently exposed, and how it ties to DEI. I do not tie it directly to the city. It is city related, and I do cover that, but I don't go in depth on that. So let me get this up here. So Yuri Bezmenov, psychological warfare. Yuri was an ex-KGB agent. He defected from the communists, the Soviet Union. He gave a lot of lectures on communist subversion of Western society and other forms of societal manipulation. He warned us about the slow generational destruction of our society through the destruction of religion and morals. And so it's a slow generational process. They really started it like early 1950s. We'll get into that though. Give me 1 second. Simplified, at the end of World War II, our federal government recognized the serious threat, early 1950s. Reference for that, it's in The Naked Communists. It's a really good book. Organizations of the United States became infiltrated by leftist communists. An example would be the college system. It's a slow process. It's over decades. It's so slow that the masses, we the people, we wouldn't notice the changes in society because it's a generational thing. In 1962, God was removed from public schools. This is just one of the examples of the slow destruction of Christianity. And then sexuality became a political issue to be flaunted, which Yuri talks about that in one of his lectures. So society is slowly progressing, right? And so if you look at the progression of sin, I'm going to touch up on this. This is kind of how it works. Sin finds little cracks. It'll spread its roots. It always tries to expand its grip on the person through addictions and bad habits. But sin always, typically, it always spreads to other people, or it'll at least try to. An example, and I'm telling you this from my firsthand experience. I'm telling you this because I know people that have experienced it. It's pretty common. Like people at a bar, they go outside to hang out with the crowd that's smoking. And someone says, hey, if you take a cigarette, it'll enhance your buzz. And so the intoxicated person takes the offer, starts smoking. The level of addiction to smoking varies. For me personally, my personal experience, I never really liked to smoke. I did dip. I've not had nicotine in over a year now, so that's actually pretty good. But how many people know someone that smokes every time they get intoxicated? Like, I know a lot of people that do that. And so one sin becomes two. So you're damaging the liver, and then you go from that to damaging the liver and the lungs. I mean, how many people know someone who's had issues with drugs? An example, the example of alcohol and cigarettes, an example of other substances. You see this a lot in construction field. The construction field. Someone hurts their back or gets injured, and so then they have to take pain pills. And over time, their tolerance builds, so they have to take more and more pain pills. And that can lead to harder and harder drugs. An example would be the fentanyl crisis that we've got going on right now. And this is just examples of the progression of sin. And so you got this happening on a mass scale within our society, okay? Things can get so distorted that a society will actively, knowingly or unknowingly, sacrifice their own children for the sake of the promise of prosperity. Parents letting their kids be brainwashed to think they're a different gender for the sake of social status. Aborting a child because they can't afford it. They choose money over life. I've seen it happen. I've heard of it happening. Something to think about, why does the Satanic Temple perform abortion rituals? That's something to kind of think about, you know. You look at biblical references, you know, they sacrifice to the demon god Moloch for the promise of prosperity. Don't quote me on it. I think it's the Moabites. It's the direct Bible verse, but don't quote me on that one. George Soros, he's one of the richest men on the planet. He likes to push woke policies. He buys media companies, influencing elections, etc. Soros owns a large stake in investment companies that own everything, like BlackRock, Vanguard. You can see the previous presentations for that one that we talked about. And remember, they can push this agenda on people and children. They can manipulate society. In communism, they always say it's for equality for all, but really, if you look at it, like the elite hog all the resources at the top, and while the people at the bottom just kind of suffer and dwindle. It's kind of like if all the kings of the land are buddies and they burn their own kingdoms down, they can roll over the ashes and take what they please from the peasantry. They want society to be in such a terrible state. Rebellion will be impossible because you're just so grinded down, economically speaking, you know, financially speaking, you know, possibly starving. You look at Europe, you look at what's going on in England. It's a slow process, but we're seeing examples of this happening right now. Examples in culture, you know, the book, movie, 1984. Also, there's a book called The Brave New World that covers it. And so this is the break slide, and this is something that I've just been kind of working on by myself. I call it theoretics. It's just a bunch of theoretical, just theories, pretty much. But if you look at sound waves are pretty interesting. And so the easiest example is Mongolian throat singing. They can pitch their voice in such a state that it has two sound waves, and then the two sound waves go into the air, and they'll intertwine, and it'll create a new sound. It's really, really cool. And so the theory is if you could do that on, like, say, like, for example, level 2, you've got two sound waves that are intertwined, and if you get another sound wave that's intertwined, those sound waves can intertwine, and you can go to like a third level that's like super intertwined. I have heard Christian divine liturgies. They're so beautiful that they physically hurt your ears because of these sound waves. It's really, really fascinating stuff. But that's just kind of the break there. But definitely check that out. It's really cool. All right, so we're back to the presentation. U.S. aid, the Government Efficiency Department, DOGE. It's discovered through U.S. aid that we, the taxpayer, gave $270 million to George Soros-backed organizations to spread the leftist communist agenda around the world. We, the hardworking taxpayers, gave money to one of the richest men in the world. So the powers that could be could further divide, brainwash, and destroy us, the American people. Other discoveries, 1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces. We're paying for this. And business communities. 70,000 for the production of a DEI musical in Ireland. 47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, 32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru, 2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. So
How does this apply to the city of Clarksville budgetary items?
it's DEI related. We're almost done.
The chairman didn't rule on it point of order.
Ask your question again, Councilman McLaughlin.
I'm unclear as to how this topic of federal government spending directly affects the city of Clarksville budget.
This does not.
It's on the slide right here. DEI is to divide. The objective of DEI is simple: control the narrative, and you divide the people in subcategories. Promote sin. People in these subcategories, typically they agree on a lot of things, but they just hate each other just as much as they do like the strong American man. And
Wouldn't it be a different issue attacking people who have different beliefs than others?
It absolutely is. Councilman Hollman, I'll invite you to confine your remarks without personalizing it, please, sir. And you have another minute, and then you've reached your 10-minute limit.
Okay, cool. These book policies, what they do is they start at the federal government, they go down to the state, and then they go to the local government, and that's what we've seen for this. And we should definitely like cut the cancer out. But what's the solution? Solution, easiest answer is just we need to all return to God as a society. We need to go to church, that myself included. If you're single, get involved in a church, and maybe you'll meet someone. If you have a family, get involved in a church, raise your children with strong morals and the intelligence of a Bible. We need people to fall in love, get married, form strong family units, and have lots and lots of children. And that's the end of my presentation, and I give all glory to God. Thank you.
Councilman Haywood, final remark?
I hope you guys have a great week. See you next Thursday.
Thank you. We're adjourned.